Have you ever had that feeling, that shaky feeling where you're pissed about something and you're like, I have the best response? Yeah, but before we go there, let's identify our emotions and where the power lies. Hey, Kathie Owen here, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk about transforming your life in magic fashion. Today, we're going to talk about disharmony and how it relates to your definite chief aim or main goal. See you inside. Today we're going to talk about how disharmony relates to your definite chief aim. Because in life, if you were just going along with the flow and every day was sunny, happy, we would be bored. We really would be bored. It just doesn't work that way. And so disharmony acts as a filter or a guidepost to help you see where you are on your journey, because it's all a journey. The journey and the destination are the same. Abraham Hicks teaches the emotional guidance scale, and it teaches us where our emotions are on this guidance. Also, Abraham Hicks teaches us about contrast. Contrast has to do with a lot with disharmony, because what we're taught is if we don't see the contrast that's going on, we won't see where things are working and where things aren't working. And we're going to have disharmony in our lives. And it's actually more about discernment and understanding the difference of things. You know, Tony Robbins has a really great quote that I posted on my Instagram the other day, and it talks about turn your frustrations into fascination. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Think about that for a moment. Because when you turn your frustrations into fascinations, you look at things differently. I know it's going to sound cliche, and this quote has become so cliche, but when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And when you turn a frustration into fascination, you're like, oh, I see, I get it. I understand this, because I'm going to give you a story. You know, my ex used to bully me with email back in the day because we were not, I'm sure he would still find a way to do it, even if the courts were watching us. And so he would bully me with emails, and most of the time it was her too, the stepmom. And the emails I would get all shaky, like I was talking about at the beginning. I'm like, oh my God, I got a great response. Here's a little tip. When you are shaky like that, you are in reactivity. And that is a time when you lose your power. That's a disharmony time where you're not in power. You know, the power versus force scales of consciousness. I would think of a great response. I would go on, and technically it was a great response, but they don't hear it, especially when you're coming from a place of force. Force is bullying. Let's take my toxic positivity gal in the fitness industry. She has a lot of great points, a lot of excellent things, but she keeps coming from a place of force where she's like, for example, she calls out these cute little fitness gals that are doing exercises online, or saying you need to do this kind of diet and you need to do this and you need to do this. And she's absolutely right in calling them out, or not calling them out, but in describing their behavior that's bad. But by calling them out, she comes out as a bully. And she's coming from a place of force, just like my email response to my ex, because I would, I would think in a place of, it would be coming from a place of power. But people, when they are in force, it's just not going to come across right. It's coming across as a bully. What happens when you're in a place of disharmony? You become anxious, overwhelmed, paranoid. Those feelings right there, identify them, get to know them. You're getting to realize, okay, I'm off track. I'm off track to my definite chief aim. This is not in alignment with who I really am. However, we also need to identify where those feelings are and how they affect us, what they do to us emotionally and physically. We need to feel those feelings. Do not suppress them. Do not repress them, because when you feel with them and you sit with them as bad as you think they are. And that is a problem, because then you just come from a place of more force and more reactivity. So when you sit with those feelings and you feel them, you're coming from a place where you're going, oh, I'm looking at this with fascination. Look what it's doing to you. Look how it feels. Look at it, study it, and go, oh, okay, I understand. One time at Thanksgiving, I took my boys to San Antonio to visit my parents. I live outside of Houston. And my ex and his attorneys were always up to something. And they had a mediation scheduled right there, right after Thanksgiving. I'm sure it was strategically planned. And it was, I was at a place where I don't know how I was going to afford it. This was constantly on my mind. I was overwhelmed with emotions. A better way for me to handle that would have been to sit there and sit with my feelings, understand what was going on, let go of what I couldn't control, and go and enjoy the holiday. Instead, I stayed in a place of overwhelm, and I was not in any place to focus on anything. Because on the way there, we stopped at a gas station to get some snacks and stopped to go to the restroom. And I left my wallet in the restroom and did not realize it till I got to San Antonio. I had to turn around and go right back. I took my boys to be with my parents and left them there, and then turned around and went back and got my wallet. I was in a place of anxiety and overwhelm, and there's no power there. Absolutely no power. And, my therapist, when I would complain to her about everything that was going on, she'd sit back in her Texas accent and say, and you expected something different from that man? She's so right, because that was coming from a place of fascination. I was looking at it totally different. I'm like, that's true. I could control my expectations. I could control my feelings. I could control what was going on with me, but I couldn't control what was going on outside of me. And I couldn't control things when I was coming from a place of reactivity, which is shaky, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, no focus, all of those things. But when you come from a place where you're proactive, working in a place of power, you start to see things totally different. So proactivity, how can I come from a place of proactivity? And what is the answer there, Kathie? Please tell me. So when you're in a good place, discover exactly how that feels. What it feels like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, what it sounds like. When you're in a place of disharmony, identify that and feel those feelings. See what's going on, hear what's going on, taste what's going on from your 5 senses, and understand that and go. You can identify. That's called discernment. So you identify the both feelings. What the best reaction is come from a place of balance. You come from a place of balance and you see everything is in balance. Everything is the way it's supposed to be. Everything is working out for me. That's subconscious reprogramming. You can sit there and have those affirmations going on in your mind and relax into the present moment. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is a great book that discusses this. But more importantly, it's ideal to understand that these things happen for us. They're not happening to us. You're not a victim of this world. You're not a victim of what's going on in the news. And if you sense any amount of fear, you know in your heart that it's not true, because only the good is true. It says it in the Bible, and you know, that is the truth. And when you're coming from a place of disharmony, you're coming from a place of force. It's just that simple. But it's going to come up in your life no matter where you are on this journey. It's just part of being a spiritual being living a human experience. I like to think of times when I've had insomnia, which is very rare, but I do know how to deal with that. Because what happens when I have insomnia and I'm really stressed out and overwhelmed, I remind myself everything is as it's supposed to be. And that may come from a weird place, but think about this for a moment. How are you going to solve all the world's problems that are on your mind when you're awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you can't control that? You just can't control that. And if you tell yourself everything is as it's supposed to be and calm yourself down, maybe journal everything that's going on in your mind at the time and go back to sleep and calm yourself down. Because truly, everything is in balance. Balance is what makes the human experience a journey. And you have to fall in love with the journey just as much as the destination. Because truly, you're never going to get to the destination. It's just a journey. And there is balance. There's going to be disharmony along the way. And there's going to be harmony along the way. Always ask yourself, how can I come from a place of power? If you notice on the levels of consciousness scale, courage is right there where the two meet. Why? Because it takes courage to get to the next level. It takes courage to get out of victim mentality. And I really like this book, Prosperity Through Thought Force. And Brian Scott does a whole episode on this book. He reads it. And I listen to it over and over again, especially when I'm stressed out. Now, this book was written in the 1800s. It's an old book, but it's very, very profound. And I find when I listen to that it brings me out of a state that is a negative state that is in disharmony. And it doesn't force me out of it, which is the way you want to do it. It helps me see that there are infinite solutions to every problem. Our human minds are wired to hone in on one certain thing and become reactive. To become proactive, we need to get in touch with infinite intelligence, our higher being, and realize that, oh, okay, I don't always know the answer. It's not always this way. And just relax and go with the flow. So that book, Prosperity Through Thought Force, talks so much about courage. Courage, contemplate courage, study the word courage. Really just meditate on courage. And it's the craziest thing, because next thing you know, you'll start finding yourself having courage. And I have other videos on this as well as my experience with my house being stolen from me. And that video right there, by the end of it, you'll identify where I found courage. And courage will take you up to the next level. Always, whenever you're in disharmony, find how you can find courage. So how does disharmony relate to your definite chief aim? Well, it keeps you in alignment. It keeps you on track. because you're not just going to go straight to your destination, straight to your goal. There's going to be corners you're going to turn. There's going to be pivots you need to make. And disharmony helps you identify where you need to make those pivots, where you're losing focus, where you're going into paranoia, where you're going into anxiety. All of those things will help you. So that's my video for today. I hope you liked it. And until next Thursday, I'll see you next Thursday. Peace out and namaste.